This is it. We finally made it. It is the final live event in the 2021-2022 calendar for us to cover just as we enter December here and just before our TCC overall rankings for 2021-2022 get revealed. We're, of course, talking about the Irish Championship for heavyweights at Robot Riots Dublin back in October. Let's jump into it, talking about all these robots here next at the Combot Collective.
Enough energy to get in the flip on Combot. We're going to go all the way. Oh my God! That's going to hurt. Grab the milk, Jenny.
Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Combot Collective, bringing everything you want to know from the world of robot combat, from the heavyweight class to the flyweight class, from Battlebots to the live circuit, and it is our final heavyweight live circuit event discussion to talk about here in the 2021-2022 calendar season. We've talked about everything happening in Florida, everything happening with Robots Live, Extreme Robots, even some special events from Battlebots, and Magic the Gathering of all people. But today we go to Dublin for the first time in the Combot Collective's history to talk about Robot Riots. This is a very interesting event. It's an Irish Heavyweight Championship, and it happens usually once a year in October. It hasn't happened for the last couple of years due to COVID. They made their grand return this year. Got quite a few robots that we're seeing for the first time ever in this event, along with some favorites from Ireland, talking about some of the teams like 4x4 with Team 4x4, and of course Team Nemesis with Diotior, the Ironaut 8 turned into Diotior. It's a fantastic flipper with already a bit of pedigree behind it. A robot I would love to see in Battlebots one day, but I digress. Today's not about Battlebots, it's all about Robot Riots in Dublin. And we have all sorts of fantastic teams and some pretty interesting matchups to talk about here. Some robots rising from the ashes and having some surprisingly good runs, and some robots that we expected to do okay at this event having disastrous runs mired with technical issues. We'll talk about all of that here though. We're starting and ending with Irish teams here. Let's jump into it. And like I just said, we're going to be opening and closing our TCC live event rundown today by discussing some revered heavyweight squads from Ireland as we kick off today with the unsung Irish veterans behind machines like Topbot, Monad, and today's topic of interest, 4x4. Team Monad competed in the final 3 series of Robot Wars with these 3 robots, always proudly representing Ireland in their colors and even competing in a world championship, but always was infamous for their short championship runs with a career 0-4 history inside the Robot Wars warzone. After Robot Wars, we'd see 4x4 become the team's flagship robot due to Topbot being ineligible for most events due to sportsman rulings. 4x4 has been a semi-regular competitor in the UK scene since, usually showing up once every year or so for the Irish Championship like it has here. Sadly though, for Team Monad, this would be yet another 0-1 event, as 4x4, now a 4-wheel drive wedge bot, would get bullied by Teresa Mayhem, getting flipped 6 times over but almost winning at one point. A disappointing outing, but the robot does look it came straight out of 2005. It runs like it also. Sure, the team are out here just for fun always. It's fun to see the robot again. I always love seeing the old school machines, of course. Moving on to a more actively armed robot now in Rusty, and no, not the Battlebots one, but one which has competed in Robot Wars way back during Series 9. Rusty started off its life as the sequel to Robot Wars Series 7 Heat finalist Saros, a personal favorite of mine, but after Series 8 never got off the ground in 2004, the machine hit the live event rounds before being sold in the mid-2010s to Glasgow Kai College, where the robot would become a senior exam project and finally a Robot Wars competitor. Rusty would go 0-1 in the Robot Wars Warzone, losing to robots like Apollo and Coyote in its only melee. And after Robot Wars, we'd see Rusty compete in various Robots Live and Mechatrons events before being sold once again during COVID. Now, we don't know much about the new team behind Rusty, but we do know it was at Robot Riots 2022 and sadly had a bit of a rough outing with an 0-2 record. Its first matchup against the Annihilator Legend can opener looked promising at first, with Rusty managing 4 flips to the grabber. Shortly after this spurt of Rusty offense, though, the flipper's arm would begin coming loose before eventually breaking off completely, leaving it a sitting target for Can Opener, who would dominate the rest of this fight, even managing to flip Rusty over, knocking it out in the final moments of the match. Against another Robot Wars classic in King Bee Powerworks, Rusty wouldn't find itself knocked out, but will be fighting uphill once again, going 4 for 7 on the flip attempts, with a lot of the fight being spent struggling against the much nippier and stronger King Bee. Major drive problems would spring up for Rusty in both of these fights, along with visible damage, losing its flipper in one fight and the stabilizer on the left in the other. So with all of that, it was an 0-2 weekend for Rusty, who bats 563 using that flipping weapon, 9 flips in 16 attempts, which is admirable. Wasn't the sturdiest weapon though. Hopefully we'll see more Rusty next year. It has some promise. Now another Irish regular that Robo Wars fans may not recognize, but some UK live supporters definitely would, is one Dozer, a 4-wheel drive plow just like 4x4. This Team Psycho Fling creation was built in the mid-2010s with extreme robots in mind, making its XR debut at Maidstone 2017 as a 4-wheel drive lifter at the time. But after a few years, the team would sell Dozer in late 2018 to make room for a new robot on their roster. Since then, we've seen Dozer ditch the lifter and become a pushbot, primarily competing in Ireland, but also showing up for a couple extreme robot stops this year. But despite all that, has yet to do really anything impactful alongside either of its owners yet. And this lack of impact would be displayed across its 3 one-on-one fights it had over the week, going 0-3 across these matchups, but only losing once by knockout during a bout where Can Opener would cripple the Irish pusher to defeat. Dozer will lose via judge's decision to Team Roaming Robots' Ripper LP and Halo, with the fight versus the former seeing Dozer getting flipped 8 times. One takeaway from that specific fight before we move on though, it certainly seemed like Dozer was much more agile when it was upside down. It seems like a good robot in its base and was just held down really badly by the wedges in a lot of these matchups, sometimes literally. I hope we can see the team invest in some better wedges, perhaps even wedgelets for 2023 and beyond. I think there's a lot of potential for this robot to be a good machine, especially in arenas with a pit. We'll have to see though. In our recent Robots Live Crawley video, we had our first chance to talk about Team Ballistics' new robot, Donald Thump's younger sister, Teresa Mayhem. In that event, we failed to see too many upsets take place, but in one melee, Teresa Mayhem would turn some heads by picking up one of its first ever wins, but ultimately put together a losing record in Crawley. Teresa Mayhem would do exactly that once again here in Ireland, picking up one victory against the aforementioned 4x4, a battle where Teresa would go 6 for 10 in flips versus the easy target, but at the serious expense of its internals, often covered by the flipper. With each flip, they came out more and more, even hindering Teresa's ground clearance and flipping power at various points, and almost even causing Teresa to knock itself out. But the flipper would survive and make it to the judges to pick up a win against a 20-plus-year-old machine. Now, Teresa would avoid being knocked out, but would not avoid losses versus simply better machines, as we would see King Bee Powerworks control, bully, and pulverize Teresa Mayhem for the full 3 minutes of the bout. But more interestingly, in a fight versus the returning Battlebots veteran Jasper, Teresa Mayhem would go 3 for 5 in attempted flips versus the lifter, but just over halfway through the fight, we'd see the CO2 on Teresa burst, rendering the already damaged robot completely useless, soon dying in the corner of the arena, but Jasper would be quick to join, wedging itself under Teresa and burning itself out for a double knockout. The fight would go to a fan vote, judge's decision, and Jasper would take the W, leaving Teresa Mayhem at 1-2 for the weekend with 9 flips completed in 15 attempts. Teresa's older brother and Robot Wars Series 10 veteran Donald Thump was also present at this event, but was merely a 2-wheel drive wedge bot for this competition due to the sportsman rules at the comp. This pretty much crippled the only means of any offense for Donald Thump, and with Donald not really being a robot known for its drive or reliability for that matter, it was left as merely a target for control and punishment. Donald Thump would get bullied by the likes of Ripper twice and even Thunderchild over the weekend, leaving Donald Thump 0-4 in Dublin. As always, we give a shout out to Team Ironclads once again here before we discuss their robots. They're the people who we get our fight footage from, so of course we give them some love too. The link to their page will be in the description below if you want to watch any of the fights we discuss in this video in full, plus numerous other events. Now talking about the robot, their flagship machine, Thunderchild, had not had the best of years so far. They sit in the bottom 10 of our TCC overall rankings. They had the flipper and drive problems for quite a good portion of the year, but we are happy to say that we did see some Thunderchild victories here in Dublin. In fact, our favorite Brit flipper managed to go 2-2 at the event. Thunderchild would take a pair of losses to the Battlebots veteran Jasper, one in a dominant performance by the lifter, out-flipping and out-controlling Thunderchild for the whole fight, even though Thunderchild would find a way to deliver some offense in the match. But the second time the two robots fought, it was curtains for Thunderchild in just over 30 seconds after a quick flip by Jasper. The wins for Thunderchild, though, came against Team Roaming Robots' Halo and Team Ballistics' Donald Thump. Thunderchild managed to take Halo's offense to out-control the match and did similar in the Donald Thump fight in what ended up being a pure pushing match. Sadly, the flipper isn't out of the bottom 10 basement just yet, but now it does sit at 122 in the TCC overall rankings. If I had to say I'm surprised by any robot's performance at this event, I'd have to bring up can opener J-Spec. The robot, seemingly only known for being good in Annihilators as a 2-time Robot Wars Annihilator champion and a multi-time Annihilator Live Tour champion, but always seemingly underperformed in the main competitions. We last saw Can Opener compete on TV during the 8th series of Robot Wars, going 0-1 after falling out in round 1 to eventual champion Apollo, as this would be the last time we'd see Can Opener with its original team. Now with these new owners, we've seen Can Opener act as a demo bot for VIPs at Extreme Robots events for a couple of years now, but Can Opener would make yet another appearance in competitive one-on-ones here during this event with a shocking amount of success. Can Opener would put up one of the best win-loss records at the Dublin event at 3-1, but seemingly did not participate in the main competition. Can Opener managed excellent bits of control against all of its opponents and even the most KOs of the entire event, kicking off its run with the aforementioned knockout against the flipper Rusty, one where Can Opener would suffer 5 flips but would still control most of the fight up till that Rusty stranding. Can Opener would go on to defeat the Irish Dozer in a similar fashion, along with Team Roaming Robots' spinner ST Ripper. In Can Opener's last fight, though, we'd see it challenge the fan favorite Diotior, and in what was an absolutely fantastic matchup, we saw Can Opener get around to grab the rounded Rhea Diotior a handful of times, and even clawing under Diotior's flipper at one moment, tearing out a battery in the process, but 17 excellent flips from Diotior would turn the judges' favor towards the flipper after 3 minutes of combat. This was an amazing run for Can Opener, and its loss may have been the most fantastic performance, funnily enough, against a very game flipper in Diotior. Hopefully the Extreme Robots team takes note of this eyebrow-raising performance for J-Spec, and maybe we can see it enter the 2023 Extreme Robots season. I know Team Divinity and Team Quake could use some robots. Now for another robot which spends most of its time as a VIP demo bot for Extreme Robots, we go to Team Roaming Robots' sole X-Bot Halo, making its first appearance since COVID had happened. For those who have not heard of this robot, this machine was originally built by Team Roaming Robots but was lent over to the late great Roboteer Chrissy Nee with Team Rybot for application into Robot Wars Series 8, but sadly would be denied. After Chrissy's unfortunate passing in 2016, the robot continued to be used but has fought less and less over the years in actual competitive events, like I said, primarily now being used for demo things at Extreme Robots. Here in Dublin, though, it was a respectively solid return to form for Halo, looking good in all of its fights despite the 1-3 win-loss record. Halo would score its only win in the event against the 4-wheel drive wedge at Dozer. A robot, like we mentioned, had some trouble driving on its base due to the wedge, something Halo definitely took advantage of in the latter half of the fight with 15 X strikes thanks to its parallelogram blade and even flipping Dozer over just before time was up. In its 3 losses, though, we would see 2 of those 3 come at the hands of the 20th anniversary version of King Buxton. In both of these fights, we would see Halo do what it could against the flat top of King B with 13 to 15 hammer strikes in both of the matchups, but the speed, aggression, control, and even ability behind King Buxton would be the X factor in both of these competitive matches, ones where the King would win both by judge's decision. A worn down Halo would also lose to Thunderchild, a fight we mentioned earlier. Of course, Halo, not the only Team Roaming Robots entry at this Dublin event. The team's flagship robot and former Extreme Robots heavyweight champion Ripper would also be present at this event, along with its older brother Ripper LP, another robot which is primarily an Extreme Robots demo machine. This is Ripper's first non-Extreme Robots event since around 2018 to 2019 as well, entering a sportsman environment for the first time in quite a while. As we'll discuss here in a second, we'd see Ripper succeed in this environment while old Ripper did do well, but would predictably have some struggles. Ripper has had an excellent year so far, being a part of the 2023 Extreme Robots Champions Team Inferno, and of course being the inaugural Extreme Robots Heavyweight Champion. Here though, Ripper would kick off its Dublin outing with a bit of a limp, with its first fight being an Extreme Robots Heavyweight Championship rematch against the weaponless Donald Thump. Ripper had serious drive issues for a majority of the fight, forcing the robot to only manage one of its 6 flip attempts in this fight successfully. In its next fight though, another match against Donald Thump, Ripper would ditch its championship gold flipper in exchange for its original flipping blade, and this change will work big time as Ripper goes 14 for 17 on flip attempts and nearly knocked out Donald Thump in the opening minute of the fight. Ripper would eventually run into King Buxton, a robot which Ripper driver John Finley would drive at the Extreme Robots event a couple weeks later, but here it was John Finley's challenger with King Bee's builder Simon Harrison present at the event. This was a predictably great back and forth fight, and one which was a tale of two sides. Ripper's drive gremlins would return the fight's first half, left to be bullied by Buxton, but these woes would cease around the 1:30 mark of the match, allowing Ripper to turn up the offense and deliver 5 flips before the end of the bout. Overall though, Ripper would go 5 for 11 on flips, not much accuracy there, and ended up losing the judge's decision against King Buxton, so in total Ripper goes 2-1 with 20 flips across 34 attempts. Now, Ripper LP has not fought competitively in years and has not fired that drum in front of its flipper in an even longer time. Ripper LP though, like I said, a robot primarily used in Extreme Robots VIP demo fights, would shock here by putting up a 2-1 record, just like its sibling Ripper, albeit while carrying some serious issues. Ripper LP got its first 2 wins against some seriously underwhelming challengers like the weaponless Donald Thump, a common opponent with its sibling, along with the Wedgebot Dozer. In that latter fight, Ripper LP had little to no power in its flipper at all, a common trend across all of its fights, but did manage to push out 8 flips across 18 attempts on the easy target to win a judge's decision. Ripper LP though, in its last match, would face a much newer and much more powerful Diotior. Ripper had so little flipper power here it could not even right itself, getting saved by Diotior 3 times in this fight, where the Irish bot would manage 10 flips on Ripper LP total. Ripper LP would die in the final 10 seconds here, but would be saved by the bell, making it to the judge's decision in all of its fights, so it does have that high note going for it. Now, believe it or not, we're not done with the Rippers here either. One lesser discussed member of the Team Roaming Robots family is one ST Ripper, Saint Ripper, Stripper, whatever you want to call it. It is a 2-wheel drive Drisk spinner sibling of the Ripper family, which was built to compete in the Extreme Robots at the time brand new spinner class to challenge the likes of Aftershock, Magnetar, Ignition, and even Monsoon. Unfortunately, the robot really never stood out as a true powerhouse and ended up being a middle of the field competitor, which has not fought since the pandemic occurred, even in the VIP matches with Extreme Robots. This was a definite dusting off of the robot here also, with no weapon being used due to the event's sportsman rules, along with a weak drive, as ST Ripper likely received no upgrades in preparation for this event. In turn, the robot would go 0-2, losing first to the much older King Bee Powerworks, a match which saw ST Ripper's jagged edges get taken advantage of by King Bee's forks, and a loss to Can Opener, who would do much similar to Saint Ripper's sides. Overall, it's a 5-7 week for Team Roaming Robots, who showed up with 4 machines and did decently with their flagship Ripper to Flipper robots, not so much with Stripper and Halo. Now, this is a very, very fascinating case here, as this robot must have not been competing in the main tournament, because our buddy Jasper here has returned red hot with a 3-0 performance in one-on-one fights. Battlebots fans will immediately recognize Jasper as the Team Tomco creation, which was a bit of a surprise entrant for the 2019 Battlebots World Championship, but would end up having a tough 0-3 season, with its most notable outing being a televised loss versus Huge. Jasper has since been sold away from Team Tomco to Scotland's Kinetic Energy Robotics, who have been preparing Jasper for their big return since shortly after 2019. Jasper entered this event with a lifting arm, something similar to Ravager from Comedy Central era Battlebots, and looked excellent in its first 2 fights, ones mentioned earlier against Thunderchild. Jasper's very first fight saw it hold over, I would say, around 85% of the fight's offense, and even showed off its stream mech abilities in a judge's decision. But Jasper would end up playing a lot less nice in the rematch, flipping Thunderchild over in the first minute and keeping there for nearly the whole fight for Jasper's first ever knockout win of the robot's entire multi-team career. And then finally, Jasper would face Team Ballistics' Teresa Mayhem in a fight which likely retired both robots for the rest of the event. Like we mentioned earlier, during Teresa Mayhem's bets, Jasper would dominate again here, but during its final push on Teresa Mayhem into the arena wall, it would knock both it and Teresa out, with Jasper billowing out smoke shortly after the impact, unable to move while Teresa was flipped up and over with CO2 busting out of itself, leading to a double knockout judges' decision victory for the lifter, bringing it to 3-0 for the Dublin weekend. Jasper also had a very unique mace attachment for this event, but only used it during demonstrations where the robots destroyed furniture and houseware. Now it's time we get to, for what we understand, was our final three, at least I think. Team B is one of my favorite UK crews, debuting in Robot Wars Series 2, my favorite series all the way back in 1998, and reached the series semi-final, still its most notable event finish. King Buxton though would become a staple in Robot Wars from that point forward, not missing a series again until Series 9. After Robot Wars ended, Team B would compete in the UK live scene semi-regularly, and always did respectfully, and even brought a 20th anniversary King Buxton Robo Games 2018 to fight the likes of Robots with Toron Maximus. Team B and Simon Harrison would actually bring 2 King Buxtons to this event, marking this the first time the team has ever ran 2 robots at one show. We would see King B Powerworks, aka King B Remix, the version which fought in Robot Wars Series 5 through 8, and the 20th anniversary King Buxton we just mentioned present at this event. The 20th anniversary Buxton, which we'll call King Buxton 2018, is the newest robot in the Buxton lineage, and it would kick its week off incredibly strong with back-to-back dominant judges' decisions against Halo, taking axe strikes and bullying Halo for all 3 minutes in both of these meetings. King Buxton would then move on to take on an ally in John Finley and Ripper, a fight we mentioned earlier. King Buxton would barely take the win here with its aggression and control over Ripper, leading King Buxton to 3-0, entering what seemed to be a semi-final for Robot Riots. The only thing stopping King Buxton from reaching the finals now was Ireland's own favorite robot, Diotior. Now both Team B and Team Nemesis are legends of robot combat, and even though the two teams have been fighting since the late 90s, the two have only ever met once since this battle, all the way back in 2001's Robot Wars Extreme 1 Tag Team Championship. King Buxton and their ally 101 entered as the defending tag team champions from Series 4 and challenged the Irish-Welsh duo of Diotior and Megamorg in the first round. King Buxton would nearly fight Diotior exclusively here, bullying the spring flipper for a majority of this fight, even managing to get Diotior set ablaze while Diotior struggled, only managing to flip 101 near the end of the fight as any sort of highlight for the robot. But despite that, the judges would shockingly go for Diotior and Megamorg, with Diotior going on to win the Tag Team Championship, its only title ever up to this point. Here though, it was a 101, no allied teams or style-based judging to challenge the two here, and no way for Diotior to get set ablaze sadly. Despite that, the fight would be absolutely fantastic. That trademark aggression from Simon Harrison and King B was on display as always, but the control was not on point like it was in fights prior whilst facing the oddly shaped Diotior. Diotior meanwhile would go absolutely buck wild on the flipper, firing it 28 times but only managing 16 successful flips. Looking a bit like Joey Gallo with the swings and misses, but nonetheless, the power behind the successful flips would break off a part of King Buxton's lifter, a likely major X factor for the judging audience who would pick the Irish Diotior to move onwards to the event grand finals. So King Buxton 2018 finishes at 3-1 in the top 4 spot, moving up to 26 on the TCC overall rankings, but shockingly, its much older brother King B Powerworks would find itself doing even better than the newer Buxton. King B Powerworks would also go 3-1, winning fights against the aforementioned Saint Ripper, Rusty, and I believe Teresa Mayhem in the semifinals, all by control, lifting power and aggression for the full 3 minutes. This impressive run wasn't the toughest strength of schedule, but it was enough to get the 22-year-old robot, the exact same robot which faced Diotior in tag team action back in 2001, another chance against this Irish flipper in the finals. Now before we get to the finals, we saved the beloved for last here with Team Nemesis and Diotior, unarguably the most successful and loved Irish heavyweight robot of all time. Team Nemesis was present for pretty much the very start of the robot combat sport in Europe, showing up for Robot Wars Series 1 and Series 2 with Nemesis before Diotior hit the scene in 1999, competing in 7 series of Robot Wars, including 4 runs at the UK title, but never won anything besides from the aforementioned Tag Team Championship with Mega Morgan Pussycat. Diotior returned from over a decade hiatus in 2017 for UK versus the rest of the world, and then in 2018 it went to China with the current version of Diotior, a purchased Iron All 7 with the Diotior livery, but sadly no fur. In China, the often labeled Diotior would compete in the FMB International Heavyweight Championship, going all the way to the final but would get knocked out by a 4-wheel drive vertical spinner named Death Toll, a robot which you might know better when it got renamed 2 months later to Endgame. Here though, it has its first chance since 2018 at an event finals, and the road to getting here was an interesting one, with Diotior easily beating Ripper LP, even saving it a couple times from knockout on the road to a judge's decision, and then Diotior would challenge Can Opener in a great matchup, one which we mentioned earlier where Can Opener would give Diotior some trouble late into the fight, sinking that horizontal crusher deep under Diotior's flipper and breaking a battery loose. But still, the Irish flipper prevailed with 17 successful flips across 21 attempts, enough to take another judge's decision win here despite the damages, leading to a semi-final against King Buxton 2018. We mentioned earlier the 16 flips to King Buxton across 28 attempts, only a 578 average, but enough to win the crowd vote, setting up another Diotior versus King B duel in the final, as the flipper had a familiar foe in its wake. King B Powerworks is one of the oldest active heavyweight machines in the world, with the chassis being built in 2000. But unlike a lot of similar machines from that era we've seen like 4x4 and Tornado, King B Powerworks has proven it survived the test of time by reaching here. Diotior meanwhile has been red hot in its first appearance post-COVID. Both these robots are 3-0 entering this with some impressive wins, but Diotior definitely had the tougher path to get here with wins over Can Opener and King B 2018. This fight, much like Diotior's semi-final, would be a battle featuring high impact and aggression from Simon Harrison and King Buxton. This time we'd see Team B a bit more locked in driving wise, with Powerworks managing more control than King B 2018, but in turn suffering more flips from Diotior. Again, Team Nemesis threw caution to the wind in the final with an astonishing 34 attempted flips by the Irish Beast. But this time Diotior delivered a 676 average on attempts with an impressive 23 flips within the 3 minutes. Again, just like in the semi-final, we'd see Diotior go 2 for 2 in breaking King Buxton's lifters, ripping off another forklift, and eventually winning the crowd vote judge decision again to become the 2022 Robot Riots Irish champion. Diotior's first championship since 2001 and its very first championship in traditional one-on-one combat. Turns out Diotior only wins events where it fights Team Buxton, and it got here by beating it twice. But that's what we have here. That's every single robot we have competing at Robot Riots Dublin. It was a fantastic event. There were a lot of filler robots. The Extreme Robots definitely helped fill the field with a lot of machines like Can Opener, Halo, Ripper LP, but it was fun to see all these robots compete, at least once in a series capacity, and now they're officially added to the TCC overall ranking. And speaking of those overall rankings, we're going to definitely expect to see King Buxton, King B Powerworks, and Diotior move way up the rankings when we finally do that video before the end of the year. So you can definitely expect that, and congratulations to those 3 robots, especially Team Nemesis, a team I've been watching literally since I was 2 years old when I first got into robot combat. Seeing them be successful here was just so exciting to see, and I really hope Battlebots reconsiders their opinions on Diotior. The team's fun. Dr. Zulu is one of the funniest dudes in robot combat. We saw it in that Robo Nerd interview a couple of years ago. They're a fantastic team, and with the right stippin and some fur on the robot, this robot could be fantastic in Robot Wars, you know? I'm sorry, Battlebots, jeez. We know it's fantastic in Robot Wars. You know, you don't want a boring Brit flipper. Well, we had Mad Dog in 2015. It almost had a chance to compete in Battlebots. Bring a Brit flipper out there with some fur. A crazy, kooky team like Team Nemesis. We would love to see these guys compete. I mean, they've officially won this. This championship here was a token for Abrasion to almost get into Battlebots in 2020. Damn you, COVID. But that's what we have right now. We know we also saw King Buxton, Team B, apply with Hooligan to Battlebots. They also got declined. Those are 2 teams I would love to see in Battlebots. But I get it. International entries are a bit more of a challenge compared to US entries, so I know how it is. But I digress. That's all we have to talk about here for Robot Riots in Dublin. Some very fascinating robots, some very fascinating fights. Shout out once again to Team Ironclads for some success with Thunderchild at this event. It was awesome to see them pick up a couple of wins, stay alive in the TCC rankings a little bit. But of course, thanks to them, as always, like I said in the middle of the video, for their footage provided here in the top left, Jesus, I'm tired, top right corner here on our TCC videos. Whenever we do these British live event videos, they're always fantastic. Shouts to them. But that's enough rambling from me. I am your host, as always, Sterling Brown. You can find me on Instagram at SterlingTXTG. As for the Combot Collective, you can find our Instagram and our Facebook in the description below. You can also find our Discord server. Please join that. All of our video news goes there first. And of course, for our YouTube channel, please give us a like, comment, and a subscription. Give us your thoughts on Robot Riots Dublin. Give us your constructive criticism for the channel. Anything you want to put right there. I am very sorry that this video came out, nearly 2 months after the damn event happened. But I've been doing a lot of backlog, a lot of catch up for these UK live events. And with how much info happens at them, these videos always take a little bit of time. So I do apologize for that. Next thing you look out for us, though, would be the Robo Games Rundown. I know I've had some commenters ask about it. I have not ignored them. It is coming along. I've had that script ready for 2 months now, but I've had to keep editing it because of robots coming and going. It should be out though in December. I will also have the TCC overall rankings top 10 for the 21 to 2022 season finalized and posted in December. I'm looking forward to both of those videos, along with more videos about Beetleways, more videos for the Battlebots previews whenever they get those pictures out, numerous other things. But that's going to wrap it up for us here at the Combot Collective. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.